All right, friends, the big news of the week is that we may be at the beginning of a peace deal between Ukraine and Russia thanks to President Trump. Many are even calling him a peacemaker worthy of the Nobel Peace Prize. But critics are shouting, Trump is the Antichrist. So, which is it? Well, that's a pretty big question, and it deserves a thoughtful response. So, here's what I want to do. First, we're going to talk about what's happening with the Russia-Ukraine peace talks. But even more, we'll look at how Christians can think about this moment without falling into fear or conspiracy.
Check the mic and make sure it sound right, boys.
Now, the news part first. At Monday's White House summit, Zelenskyy and every European leader basically said the same thing. These talks are happening because of Trump. So whether you love him or hate him, you're indifferent, or somewhere in between, that's the reality on the table. In fact, Vladimir Putin stated he was never contacted by the Biden administration to pursue peace talks or negotiations regarding the Ukraine war. Think about that for a second. And this just in. Fox News is reporting in a major step toward ending the years-long war, Russian President Vladimir Putin has agreed to a bilateral meeting with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy. White House press secretary said President Trump spoke with President Putin by phone, and he agreed to begin the next phase of the peace process, a meeting between President Putin and President Zelenskyy, which would be followed, if necessary, by a trilateral meeting between President Putin, President Zelenskyy, and President Trump. So there you go. How about that for breaking news? Right in the middle of everything here. So obviously no final deal has been struck, and this is a developing story, as I just pointed out. But the fact that Russia and Ukraine are even in a position to be talking about a possible peace agreement, that's not small. That could reshape the war's trajectory. And here's the bigger context. Trump has made a name for himself as a negotiator. His approach has always been no deal until there's a deal. Critics argue he's ambiguous and flip-flopping, and he is. But they're stuck on the process, while Trump cares about the outcome. Ceasefire first? Fine. Straight to a peace agreement? Even better. His focus is on getting to the finish line. But then he said something today that really caught my ear. Talking about the lives lost every week in this war, he said,
I just want to end it. I want to end it. You know, we're not losing American lives. We're not losing American soldiers. We're losing Russian and Ukrainian, mostly soldiers. Some people, as missiles hit wrong spots or get lobbed into cities like Kiev and towns. But, if I can save 7,000 people a week from being killed, I think that's I want to try and get to heaven if possible. I'm hearing I'm not doing well. I hear I'm really at the bottom of the totem pole. But if I can get to heaven, this will be one of the reasons.
That's a remarkable way to frame it, not just politically, but spiritually. Ending wars, saving lives as part of his hope of standing before God. Now, of course, some people are going to hear that and roll their eyes, and others are going to take it further and say, see, he's not God's instrument. He's the Antichrist. Now, that's been floating around since his first term, and honestly, it's worth addressing. First, Jesus actually never told his disciples to waste their time trying to guess who the Antichrist is. That word actually comes from John's letters, not from Jesus. What Jesus did say was, watch out for false Christs and false prophets. Don't be deceived. In other words, be alert, stay faithful, and don't get distracted. The Bible describes the Antichrist in two ways. There's the present spirit of the Antichrist, Satan's influence already at work in the world through false teachers and rebellion. And there's the future figure, the Antichrist, who will one day rise up, empowered by Satan, to set up a counterfeit global kingdom. So that's why John could say there are many Antichrists already, while also warning about the Antichrist still to come. So yes, the Bible takes deception seriously, but the point isn't to turn our faith into a conspiracy theory guessing game. The point is to be transformed in Christ so we're not deceived in the first place. Think about what C.S. Lewis wrote in his book, The Screwtape Letters. He said, there are two equal and opposite errors, to disbelieve in devils or to feel an excessive and unhealthy interest in them. That's the balance. We're not supposed to deny the reality of evil, but we're not supposed to obsess over it either. And here's my own reflection on that. Jesus told us directly that Satan is the father of lies. If he can't deceive us, he'll distract us. He is the spirit of Antichrist. That's why from the very first church until now, nearly every generation has thought they were staring the Antichrist in the face. So where does that leave us? Remember when Jesus said, "Blessed are the peacemakers" in Matthew chapter 5, verse 9? Dallas Willard taught in his book, Divine Conspiracy, about that. And he said, once we make peace with God, we should overcome evil with good, living as peacemakers who break cycles of violence, whether that's in our marriage, with our kids, in our families, or with our friends, or even on the world stage. And the psalmist tells us to seek peace and pursue it. Jesus also said in John chapter 8, if you put his teachings into practice, you'll know the truth, and the truth will set you free. And Paul tells us in Romans chapter 12, don't be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. And coming all the way back to John, he also reminded believers, greater is he who is in you than he who is in the world.
It sound right, boys.
Let's bring this all back around. Trump is in the middle of peace negotiations that may or may not land. It's a moment in time and it can change quickly, but it raises a really good question for us as Christians. Should our prayers be consumed with asking God to reveal the Antichrist? Or should we be praying that God brings peace to Ukraine? And that's where I'll leave it with you. Am I missing something? Like and subscribe if you found value in this conversation. And here's a bonus challenge. Read Matthew chapter 24 and 25. Comment below what you discover. What does Jesus say about false teachers? And more importantly, how we should live. I'm Brian Tuttermore with today's Faith Check News. Remember, think right to live free.